Hi everyone, this is Diva from Blood Hunter, and you're listening to the Metal Pit podcast.
Welcome to the Metal Pit podcast, where we delve deep into the albums and bands that shaped metal. Please visit us on our website at www.themetalpit.org, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Metal Pit, and on YouTube at The Metal Pit 666. If you have any comments or album suggestions or questions about this podcast, please email us at podcast@themetalpit.org, which I just created that email so we could have maybe some suggestions from people listening. Today I have with me two of my writers for the Metal Pit. We have Kenneth. How are you doing, Kenneth?
I'm good, sir. How about yourself?
Good. This is your third podcast. We've already did Anthrax and Exodus together, so thrash metal seems to be a theme for you. Mm-hmm. And then we have Billy, who's pretty new to the website, a few months now, but he's wrote lots of album reviews. And you are both in Toronto area. And how are you doing, Billy?
Oh, very good, Blake. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Good. This is your first podcast episode. So I just thought I'd just mention that you're going to be off to Wacken Festival this year in Germany again. This will be your 10th time going to this festival. Can you tell me maybe what band that you've seen over the first 9 times you've seen it? Is there one band that stands out that would be your most favorite one that you've seen at Wacken?
Yeah, Blake. So many bands that I can speak to, but probably one of the, I know this is a thrash episode, but one of the best performances was probably the band Savatage. It was a couple years ago. They came out of whether you say retirement or their extended break, but they did a reunion show. But it was this amazing show because they did it with they have that orchestra.
Yes.
Excuse me, the orchestra that many of the band members do, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yes.
So what they did is they Wacken has 2 major stages side by side. And so both played at the exact same time. And they linked the light shows for the 2 stages, and the orchestra backed up Savatage. Just incredible. Like it's just one of those moments that I'll remember for my entire life. Just one of the best production shows ever.
That's awesome. I love Savatage, and I've never got to see them live. And I also love Trans-Siberian Orchestra, actually. And I did see them live once, like Christmas tour, I think it was. But yeah, that's awesome. And then next spring, you're going on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise, and this is your 5th time, I think, going. Now, I have the same question. Is there any band that you've seen on the cruise that was the most special of all the cruises you've been on?
One of the most memorable was 2020. So perfect show to go to right before a pandemic is going to hit, because it was like literally 2 months before or a month before everything shut down, and I got to see like 50 bands. So it was just sort of perfect. But there I'd say Exodus. They actually closed the festival. It was probably like 1 a.m. on the rooftop of the ship. It was actually just recovering from a terrible storm, so the wind was blowing. And they actually played their entire Bonded by Blood from beginning to end.
Oh, that would be good.
Just killer memory. And again, the experience of being on a ship and the extreme wind, it's just totally unique, something you never get.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could go on a cruise. And what I forgot, I guess, who are you looking forward to seeing at Wacken this year? I assume all the bands are mentioned mostly. Is there one band that you really want to see?
Yeah, I mean, one thing that interests me is Iron Maiden. So they're headlining the show. So always a great show. On the death metal side, Deicide's doing a special version of their Legion album, playing the whole thing beginning to end. Um, and then, Halloween, I did just see them, but it's great to see them, in front of their hometown crowd, 75,000 people. That's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at probably 300 bands over 4 days. So just amazing stuff.
And how many bands are on the cruise usually?
50 to 60 on the cruise. The really unique thing about the cruise, though, is every band plays twice. So, like, if you go to a festival, you're always getting overlaps that kill you. But on the cruise, because they play twice, if you do a little bit of planning, you can catch everybody.
Yes, it sounds really good, but I can't swim. Not that you have to swim to go, but I'd just be freaking out. I hope I don't hit an iceberg. Whatever.
Yeah.
That's a Canadian in me talking. Okay, so and today, I don't think I even mentioned this yet. We're going to talk about Slayer today. I don't think I mentioned that yet. And I'll just give a little quick bio for anybody that just woke up from a coma for the last 40 years, I guess. Or maybe it's 50. I'm not sure. Slayer is, of course, an American thrash metal band from California, or they were, as they don't exist anymore, but they were formed in 1981 by guitarist Kerry King and Jeff Heineman, and drummer Dave Lombardo, and bassist singer Tom Araya. Of course, Slayer's fast and aggressive musical style made them one of the big four bands of thrash metal, along with Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax that did that tour. I don't know, probably 10 years ago now that they did that tour. Slayer's final lineup, when they retired, had in their farewell tour, which I'm happy to say Slayer's only did one farewell tour, not like some bands that I won't mention. Unless, of course, they come back and ruin everything I just said. But anyway, it was Araya, Kerry King, Paul Bostaph on the drums, and Gary Holt, who is, of course, in Exodus, was the. Oh, and there's also, I don't know, it's John Deddy was also a member of the band, but I don't think he was on the last tour, but I could be wrong about that. They have released 12 studio albums, which really isn't that many when you consider how long they've been together, but I think they toured so much is probably why they didn't. And of course, we know Slayer, and we know all the bad hype they got from their lyrics about torture and organized crime and terrorism and religion and anti-religion, war and all that stuff. But that's probably what made them more popular too, to the kids at that time. Today, we're going to talk about their third album, Rain in Blood, which a lot of people consider their best album and one of the best metal albums ever. It was from 1986. And one thing I did discover preparing for this podcast that I never knew before, and I didn't go look it up to watch it, but Tom Araya made a guest appearance on Suicidal Tendencies video for their song Institutionalized.
Yep.
And I guess he's the one that pushes Mike Muir in the video. And I always remember, I love that. I love Suicidal Tendencies and I love the video, but I never knew that information until now. So I need to go back and watch the video so I can see whatever 18-year-old, probably Tom Araya, in a Suicidal Tendencies video. Anyway, so we're going to talk about Billy. I'm going to ask you first. When did you first hear Slayer or maybe Rain in Blood, whichever came first, I guess?
Yeah, Blake, I would say probably, I mean, my first album is definitely Rain in Blood. So a great way to start. It was after the album was released. Like, I'm going to say probably 87 at some point, just before South of Heaven the following year. And it just... Like, I remember this so vividly. Like at the time, the music I listened to, I got into metal like 84, 85, bands like Van Halen, AC/DC, Twisted Sister, kind of the lighter stuff, if you will. And I remember going into the record store, seeing the Rain and Blood album, and hey, I gotta have this thing. It was cassette, I believe, if I remember right. I remember taking that thing home and listening it to the first time. So going from like Twisted Sister, Van Halen to Slayer, I mean, it was complete shock and awe. It was probably the best thing I ever heard. Just nonstop intensity, controlled aggression, just amazing stuff. And it was my gateway to like, it was what else could I get, like other heavier music that'll come up in my top 86 list, but it really was opened the door for me to heavier and certainly much faster music. Killer stuff.
That's cool. And then Kenneth, when did you first hear Slayer?
Well, it was back in '86, so not long when the record had just come out. I used to work for a pool company during the summers, and it was a family-run business. So they had another guy working in the back who's considered this kind of a fuck-up guy. I liked him. He was into metal, so we both got along, and he kept talking about Slayer. And I was like, Slayer? What are you talking about? Who is this band? So he actually brought in the vinyl record for me. So I took it home, and with a couple of my buddies, we listened to it, and it just blew me away. I was like, what the hell is this? That scream in the beginning, the speed, the aggression, and the fact that it's not even 30 minutes long blew the hell out of me. It was like, I've never heard anything like this. I was flabbergasted, but like Billy, once I heard that, I was like, okay, I got to hear more. I need more and more and more. And so I love Slayer ever since.
So Rain and Blood is also your first Slayer album?
No, it's not my first. I did hear the two earlier albums, but I never really paid attention to them.
Okay.
But this was the album that I actually did start paying attention to Slayer.
Okay. Now, well, for me, I listened to Show No Mercy. I got the first album. Now, it's so long ago, I can't really remember why, if I just bought it, because I was into, Show No Mercy was the same year as Kill 'Em All, right? Metallica. So I know I heard Metallica first, and that opened the doors for thrash. So I don't know. I just can't remember if I was told, okay, Slayer's thrash metal, so I had to get it, or if I seen the cover of it, or if I heard it. I can't remember any of that, but I do know I had the vinyl for Show No Mercy, so I knew Slayer right from the start. Right. And I like that. I like Show No Mercy. Actually, my favorite Slayer album is the first one. I don't know if it's sentimental reasons, but it's still my favorite Slayer album, Show No Mercy. And then I liked Hell Awaits. And then Rain and Blood came along. And I'm sure I just bought every Slayer album when it came out back then. Anyway, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So now let's get talking about the album. And we'll start with the first track, which, of course, is one of the most recognizable Slayer songs. And it definitely fits in with the title. It's called Angel of Death. And I'll say something. This is the only song I have a lot written about. so let me continue. So this song was wrote by Jeff Hanneman. He wrote the lyrics and the music, I believe. And of course, it's about a Nazi physician, Joseph Mengele, if I'm saying that right, who did human experiments at the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II. Apparently, this song is one of the reasons the album was delayed in being released, because the label that they did have didn't want to release it because of the song and the Nazi stuff that was in it and racism. So I didn't write down, but I think they went to a different label and they were like, "No, we don't care," or something. I don't know. That's why. I probably have it on Bonsai Records. I don't know what it was for people in the United States, so I didn't look that up. But anyway, so this is one of the great songs. This is one of my favorite songs off the album, and it's also the second most song they have played live through their whole career was this one, Angel of Death. They played it 1,843 times. I'm getting that off setlist.fm. So take that information as you will, but only one song has been played live more than this one, and that's also on this album, and I'm sure you can guess which one that is. So let's start. Kenny, what do you think of Angel of Death?
Oh, this is actually one of the greatest opening songs in any metal album, in my opinion. Like it hits you right at the beginning. You get Tom's scream to start out, and it's relentless from beginning to end. And yeah, those lyrics are very daring for the time, because I don't know what musician or any writer would want to write about, Nazi Germany and all the experiments that happened, because Auschwitz and all the Auschwitz and all those stories are really, really horrible. So the fact
Mhm.
that he wrote it is interesting. I do know that he was reading books on earlier Slayer tours, all about Nazi Germany and the Reich, the Third Reich, and I think he also, if I remember, in one interview I read, he was collecting Nazi memorabilia as well. So he had a large fascination with that stuff. So that song he'll for me, even though I know he's passed on, will be the song that he's best remembered for in my mind. And I think the other thing for me is when that song came out, it was also a bit of a change for the band, because obviously their first two albums are more about Satan and all about Satanism, and this album they decided with this song it's a departure from the two previous records. So yeah, it's one of the best opening songs I've ever heard. I love that song like yourself. It's so strong.
Excuse me, and Billy, what do you think of the song? I know you like the song too, obviously.
Yeah, no, I think I'll probably echo Kenneth a lot here, but I mean, for me, some might say arguably, but for me, it is the best metal song ever written, in my opinion. I mean, that opening riff is so memorable. I mean, I played this so many times. My wife, who hates heavy metal, when this song comes on anywhere, she's like, "Hey, that's Slayer." Right? Like, I mean, that's how often I played this album. But Kenneth mentioned it, that Tom's opening scream in the song. I mean, Dave Lombardo's drumming is kind of killer. And then sort of at the 3 to 4 minute mark, you got Carrie and Jeff trading these chaotic guitar solos. And then it goes into the most famous metal, 30 seconds or 10 seconds ever, Tom's kind of infamous double bass drumming, and then it goes silent, and then it just amazing. The song is heavy metal perfection in my eyes. And again, lyrics and writing aside, I mean, certainly, that's some serious heavy stuff, and certainly nothing to that we should, it was some horrible things that were done, and so it's just forgetting sort of that kind of lyrical content, but just music wise, best metal song ever, in my opinion.
Yes, and these people that always, try to stop people from saying what they want to say, right? It's not like he's a Nazi. It's just that he's fascinated by the storyline, and Angel of Death is a great title for a metal song, especially a Slayer one. And then we go on to Piece by Piece. This song is only 2 minutes and 2 seconds long. So obviously it's fast. So, and this one is the song off this album that they played the least live. I don't know if that means anything, but so what do you think of Piece by Piece, Billy?
Yeah, so Blake, as you said, 2 minutes. I mean, this song has the tough job of following up probably the best song, as I've said, in metal history. So it's going to be, pretty tough for anything. But again, just another fast, rapid, rapid pace song. Moves quickly, in and out, 2 minutes. Controlled aggression, angry, fast, intense are words that come to mind. More brutal lyrics. Always that line, tearing limbs piece by piece, is always remember, that. And again, Dave's drumming kind of a standout again here, just so intense. I mean, he's beating those drums up. It's just crazy. And the production, applies to the whole album. The drumming is just pummeling nonstop through the album. Just fantastic stuff.
And Kenneth?
Yeah, I agree with Billy. Pretty much, he's nailed it head on with the song itself. The one side note to production, though, the one thing I do know that Rick Rubin brought to the band was their production, to basically sharpen and tighten the sounds. And that was the one thing I know that Kerry King had commented on many times, that they were impressed that he was able to help the band bring that sound out for them more. Because in the first two albums, their major complaint was the production. So here everything gets tightened, everything is fast, quick, it's brutal. and Tom's he's just trying to keep up with the guitars. Like he's just spitting out those words like it's so insane.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did a really good job with that. That's the one thing I like about Tom is how he kept up with the rhythm and that aggressive sound going all the way through it.
Yeah, I don't even know how he says the words so fast, actually. It's more or less like he's just kind of talking and he's just, I don't know, they're all just going so fast. And I think that Dave Lombardo actually quit Slayer after this album. And I think it's probably because his arms are so tired from playing so fast on this album. He said, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, he did quit for a time.
Yes, he did come back too.
Yeah, Rick Rubin was the one who brought him back. He kept calling him every day to come back. So eventually he picks him up in a Porsche. He drives up with his Porsche, picks him up, takes him to the studio, and he came back to the band. And from my understanding, I think a lot of it was about money.
Yeah.
Even way back then, he was kind of pissed that he wasn't getting his share of the what the band was making. So from my understanding, that Rick actually gave him a salary. Supposedly, that's what I heard. So, and then he came back to the band for a few more years.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And I noticed he had an album out. Has anybody heard his album? He had a solo album. I don't know if it's instrumental. I didn't even pay attention. Have you heard that?
Which Dave's?
Yeah, Dave Lombardo had it.
Yeah, he did release a solo album. Was it a few years ago? I think it was. Yeah.
No, I think it was just this year. I thought it was just this.
You're probably right. Yeah, I know it was fairly recent. I wasn't sure exactly when it came out.
Yeah, he did Blake release it probably about a month ago. It's really I don't own the album, but I did listen to a few tracks online. Very interesting and unique. It's almost solely drumming.
Oh, is it? Okay.
So like, a great album, I think, for a drummer. A little harder to listen to, without the guitars and everything else.
Yeah.
On, but he's still, again, he's out there, the Misfits and Suicidal Tendencies. He's playing with everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got no shortage of things to do.
Well, he's in that, I forget the name of the group, but the one Mike Patton's a singer in.
Oh yeah, Mr. Bungle.
Oh, there's another one. Sorry. Why do I forget the name? Doesn't matter now, but I'll look the name up after I'll get back to that. But we go to the next song, which is even shorter. What is this? Okay. This is Necrophobic, which of course is a fear of death. And this is another blistering song. And I don't know how you can fit 2 guitar solos in a song that's only 1 minute and 40 seconds long.
Yeah.
But they do. So Ken, what did you think of this track?
This is actually, for me, the star of this song is actually Tom again, because he just spits out lyrics. And it's like, you can see he's like just basically trying to keep up for the whole song. And he does a really good job with it. But I don't really have a lot to say about it. The album, or at least by the third song, they're getting into kind of a formula here. But it's I was always amazed at Tom's vocal style and the way he just sat there and he's just spitting out words just to keep up. But it's a great song as well. Lots of aggression, pretty nasty. You wouldn't go wrong with this song either.
And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, it really is interesting. I think, Ken kind of nailed it. Just another short, aggressive song. This album is so unique, like 30 minutes. You've got, and maybe I'm jumping slightly ahead, but, it opens with the best song in metal, probably closes Raining Blood with the second best song in metal. Yeah. And then you've got these like 7 tracks in the middle that are all, not all equally intense, but just short 2-3 minute tracks that just keep the intensity going. And, Necrophobic's, exactly the same thing. And again, just another line, like I always remember, Tom, just shouting the ripping apart, severing flesh, tearing limb from limb. Again, just so like brutal. And, I as a teenager, like, just the lyrics added so much intensity to the music. So yeah, just, you got, the first song, second song, third song, they're just the intensity keeps going, which is my love for the album. It's just brutal. It's short, 30 minutes, but you can't handle anymore, right? Like, you're just spent after the 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, see, I think that's my why I don't like this album as much. Like, not why, because you guys don't seem to care with the length, but I was bothered by that it was only 28 minutes long, because I thought, geez, it's only 28 minutes long. So I really liked the first Slayer album, and then Hell Awaits, right? And I think, I don't know if it was just because it was so short, it was so fast. All the songs are just 100 miles an hour or 160 kilometers an hour. But I don't know. To me, I would like a little bit longer than some of these songs. And so that's probably just why I don't like it. I also like South of Heaven better than this one too, but it's a little slower, right? It's probably still not that long. Slayer never really did make very many long albums, did they? I don't even think, even in their last albums, they were just used to making short albums. But that's probably my downfall of it, and why I didn't get into it so much, because it was over so fast. And it was like, bam, there's no, but anyway, so let's get to Altar. Am I right? Yeah. Altar of Sacrifice. And this is a long one. This is almost 3 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I don't know this song. I don't know. What do you think the song's about? Does anybody care about the lyrics? How about Ken? Maybe what do you think the lyrics are about in the song?
Sacrificing somebody to Satan. It's one of their throwback songs from the first two albums. At least that's what I get out of it. But really, like, again, there's the crazy vocals, which are just rabid all the way through. The riffs are aggressive. The song itself is just, it just grabs you, doesn't stop, doesn't let up. I like that song. I don't know if it's one of my favorites on the album, but I do like it a lot.
Yeah, but the first two albums are more about Satan, right? Then this one, they kind of went on, bunch of different ways. But yeah, this song does kind of go back to the first two albums lyrically, I guess.
That's kind of what I felt.
Yeah. And what do you think of Altar of Sacrifice, Billy?
Yeah, I like it. So it's interesting. Here we roll into this song, and after the intensity of the others, and this song's totally intense as well, but probably the pace like moderates a little bit here on this one. They do sort of slow it down. I mean, for Rain and Blood, slowing it down, but so that's cool. that we get there's a little bit more versatility. Even Tom singing, it's a little more versatile, I would say. It's not just all out like intense spewing. He's mixing it up a little bit, so that's pretty cool. Some like really evil sounding riffs. Again, you got Kerry and Jeff just shredding a couple really good solos, and with this super length for this album, 3 minutes, they actually have time to do some longer solos. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, another great song here.
Yes, and I found the band I was trying to think of was Dead Cross, of course, with Mike Patton, the vocalist, and Dave Lombardo was on drums. That's the group I was trying to think of. He might have been in Mr. Bungle too, was he? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think he was in Mr. Bungle. Yeah.
Okay, then we go to Jesus Saves, and I don't think this is a religious plus song, but Billy, what do you think of Jesus Saves?
Yeah, so one of my favorites on the album, really, again, just filled with memorable riffs from the album. Just rips your face off again, right? Just intense and fast, and again, Tom just shines on this thing, just like pounding away on the drums. I mean, these sort of middle 5 or 6 songs were going to sound kind of repetitive here. There's a bit of duplication in approach, but just another great song in the vein of Rain and Blood.
And this Jesus Saves and Altar of Sacrifice, I forgot to mention, they both played those songs live over 400 times, so they seem to like those songs too. While Necrophobic wasn't played that much, 100 times. And Criminally Insane, which is the next track, which I have nothing written down about. So, Kenneth, I'll ask you about the song then.
Yeah, the song is all right. Again, all they sort of wanted to, like, the pattern here for the lyrics is that everything, it's about evil, more or less, criminally insane, and the idea of someone who's not all there or not right in the mind. So they pretty much try to, I feel like at times the album wants to shock you. It just wants to shock you with lyrics that you wouldn't hear on most normal record albums or most record or rock or metal. And yeah, again, it's a strong song. I'm not sure if I'm particularly attached to the song, but it's in the same vein as all the previous songs in my mind.
And Billy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I might like it slightly more than Ken, just musically, from the sounds of it. But I think the interesting, and I didn't even realize this, I was just kind of, doing a bit of a refresher yesterday, knowing we have the podcast, but this was actually the single from the album. I didn't even realize there was a single for the album. And apparently when it was released, again, this is as good as the source was that I read, but apparently the drums were remixed to make it slightly less intense. So I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. I didn't know that and how true that is. But it was one of the bigger magazines that I kind of read about it from. So maybe it's true. But yeah, another great song. Nothing more to add there.
Yeah.
And I did read, I forgot, I was just looking this up here about how the songs are short, about me complaining about the songs being short or the album being short. But Jeff Hanneman did say that they were listening to Metallica and Megadeth at the time or before they made the album maybe. And they were finding the repetition of guitar riffs tiring. So they thought that what they just played, and they didn't try to make the song shorter. It's just the way they turned out because they were playing so fast, and then they were done the song, I guess. And I guess I didn't like the repetitive riffing that I guess those other two bands would do. Where was I? Oh, okay. Now we're on to Reborn, another 2-minute song. Yeah. And I already said what I said. Okay, Reborn. Billy, what do you think of Reborn?
Yeah, I mean, just, more of the same, just more, brutal intensity, little more straightforward song, so some good soloing here again. I mean, it's interesting. I'm a big fan of all the songs, but, if I had to we're hitting the album where if I were to pick two songs that, still great songs, but my least favorite on the album are Reborn and the next one, Epidemic, are probably my two least favorite. But that said, still great songs, for this album. But I just didn't find them, like, from a writing perspective, as memorable. But still, the intensity just makes them great songs.
Yes, Ken, and what do you think?
Yeah, the song is okay. It's not one of my favorites either. Although lyrically, like, basically when you listen to it, the idea of being reborn is that there's an unnamed person who's incarcerated and may have made a deal with the devil and is going to die, but will be reborn. So it's a very basic concept. It's okay. I like Billy. I don't mind the song, but I find when you get to this portion of the album, it dips a little bit, just slightly, before it picks up again at the end. But yeah, the song is all right. It's still strong. It's 2 minutes. Anything longer than 2 minutes, I'm kind of wondering how that would go if it was like maybe 3-4 minutes longer. I don't know. But 2 minutes, yeah, it's fine at that length.
Well, they would definitely have to slow down, I think, a little if they did some longer songs. Like, I mean, Raining Blood is fast, but we're gonna get to that. But it's not as fast as some of these really short ones, right? And even the Angel of Death is a little bit. So, like, the two most popular songs from the album are the two longest ones on the album. So I don't know. Maybe I have something. Maybe I am getting somewhere. Anyway, then we go to Epidemic. I don't think this is about COVID, but Kenneth, what do you think of Epidemic?
Again, it's all right. I don't mind the song. It doesn't really. I was listening to this the other day myself, and it's all right though. But I don't really have a lot to say about it. It's just continuing in the same vein for me. Maybe I think I might like Reborn slightly better than Epidemic, but yeah, these are the two songs that are sort of the same kind of tone and style and feel, and it's all right. But that's what I have to say about it, though. Really.
And Billy, do you have anything to add about Epidemic?
No, I agree completely. But as I said, Epidemic and Reborn, very similar. My two least favorite tracks. I think Ken said it all.
Yeah, and like I just mentioned, you got Raining Blood and Angel of Death. Both those songs are over 4 minutes long. Yeah. And then you get all these 2-minute songs, and they just whiz by so fast. And you like the songs, but they don't, they're not classic songs necessarily, but you still love them. But I don't know. I think they should have maybe threw another longer one in between all these instead of just going 100 miles an hour all the time. And I'm still waiting for a ballad. I still haven't heard a ballad on here.
Oh yeah, anyway. I'm not sure about
that. Anyway, I don't like ballads, so don't worry. Okay, and then we go to Postmortem, and I think this is one of the more popular songs, and it actually happens to be the third longest song on the album at 3.5 minutes. And this one is not played at 100 miles per hour. I find this one's only played at 95 miles per hour.
There you go. 5%
And so, Billy, what do you think of Postmortem?
Yeah, I think one of the stronger tracks, and I can't help but view this song as literally the intro of Raining Blood, right? Like I think of the two like hand in hand.
Yes.
Like I don't think I can listen to Raining Blood without Postmortem first. Like they're just like essential back to back listening. But again, those memorable guitar riffs at the start of the song, and they sort of pick up again, near the end of the song. And Blake, I think you kind of mentioned it. Maybe not 100%, 95. Like the pace eases slightly here at times, and so a little more dynamic. It makes the heavier parts even heavier. But again, just checks all the boxes. You get another classic Tom, like super scream in the song. Dave's drumming, the chaotic solos. Just perfect Raining Blood song, and it sets the stage for what's coming next.
Yes, and Kenneth, what do you think of Postmortem?
Yeah, Billy said it all. That's exact. It's like the handoff song. It's a song that you get just before you get the big finale. There's a lot of down-tuned rhythms in this song, which I like. So it just adds to the kind of the dark feel to it. And yeah, it's the handoff. You can't listen to Raining Blood without listening to this song first. I would agree.
Now, do they play this one live before Raining Blood? Do you remember?
I don't remember the show that I was at. I don't think so, but they could have.
Yeah, often they don't play them back.
Okay. Yeah. I just wondered if maybe they did, because it is the third. It's the third the third highest song from this album that they've played live, but not as much as it's like 1,100. While Raining Blood, which we're talking about now, they've played it 1,876 times. So it was definitely the song they played the most. And who wants to talk about Raining? I know I love Raining Blood. I love this song, but I'm going to let Ken go first on Raining Blood.
Sure. So the song is the most interesting for the lyrics. What I know about the song and what I've read and heard is that they decided to write a song about somebody who gets cast out of heaven, lands in purgatory, and while in purgatory decides or is scheming a vengeance, a plan of vengeance, and wants to fuck shit up and pretty much destroy heaven. So it's a very nihilistic song, but it's just epic. It has an epic sound. That the opening bit with the rain falling, oh my god, it's like this song is absolute stunner right from beginning to end, and it's the best way. And I would think the Angel of Death and this song here are the two that really cap off the album in my mind. So I think you're right, Blake. I think I get what you're saying about why you don't like this album as much, because you get kind of filler in the middle, and there are some good choice cuts. But really, when you listen to this album, I think you're right. It's the two songs. It's the beginning and end song is what I think most people will remember. So I think you're right about that. I think I get why you're not so like really digging it as much.
Yes. And Billy, what do you think of Raining Blood?
Yeah, so again, Ken said it well. I mean, for me, probably second best metal song of all time. You think about what we just listened to. You finally get a chance to breathe. You get the rain sound, that light drumming taking place. So what's going on here? First 20 seconds, and then all hell breaks loose as the song takes off. But you think about, and this is probably one of Tom's most infamous screams here. You got that part near the end with the chugging guitars, and then Tom just shouts like raining blood, like towards the end of the song. Just metal perfection. Another classic Slayer song.
Yeah, for sure.
And did you know that pop singer Tori Amos did a cover of this song?
I did hear that and was amazed.
No, I haven't heard it. I was just reading about this, and I guess they sent it to the band or something, and I'm not sure which member it was, but he said it took like a minute and a half to even figure out where she was in the song or something. So I don't think they really liked it, and I'm sure it's not going to be, Tori Amos isn't going to be doing it the way Slayer did it, but
no.
They still send her Slayer t-shirts or something, I guess.
Yeah, and for those who don't, I happen to know because my wife's a big Tori Amos fan. But I mean, Tori's literally a female singer-songwriter who largely sings with her piano playing. So like probably one of the last people you'd expect to play a Slayer song.
Yeah, on piano, I might add too.
Yeah, that was weird when I saw that, and I'm sure lots of groups have covered it, but. Yeah. I did read a list, but I didn't even know any of the bands that they said covered it. I'm sure there's been some other metal bands that have covered it, but anyway, so that's the album. I know on the re-releases or on Spotify, there is an extra song now or something, but we're not going to worry about that because this was the original album. So we're going to rate this album out of 10. Billy, what would you give this out of 10?
I mean, it may sound like a cop-out, but I'm going 10 out of 10. As far as I'm concerned, if you got the best song in metal history and the second best, it's got to be a perfect album. And, as we talked about, the songs in between, some are better than others, but just the sheer intensity. I mean, if you're a thrash fan, this is the album, in my opinion, that you'll judge all other thrash albums by. So again, 10 out of 10 for me.
And Ken?
The same, 10 out of 10. I agree, Billy. I totally agree. And this album is very. It's the album that you would if you're thinking about thrash metal, this is one of the three that you would bring up for sure. Absolutely, no question, hands down.
Okay, now for me, I'm giving it 7 out of 10, but we already know why. I've already talked about my faults with it, and it's not that I don't like Slayer. Like I said, I really like the first two, and I like South of Heaven a lot. And even God Hates Us All is pretty good and stuff too. But yeah, I never really got into this one except for those two songs. But even those two songs could give it a 10, even with their filler songs. But anyway, and I'm sure probably in 1986, I was just listening to so much other stuff too, which we will get to when we do our top 10 list. Now, for seeing the band live, let's start. Oh, Billy, I guess. I know you just mentioned before we started, you've seen them lots of times. So how many times have you seen Slayer live?
Yeah, I'm somewhere between 25 and 30 concerts. So yeah, definitely, I'm being my favorite band. I go out of my way. Having you mentioned going to festivals. I've lived in Canada and the U.S. and I've always lived in city hubs that are near other cities. So on a tour, I would often see them 2 or 3 times as they come through on that same tour. So. And a band that's amazing live. First time I ever saw Slayer live would be on the South of Heaven tour. It was in Montreal at the Verdun Auditorium. A Commonplace Slayer would actually play there. So very memorable there being the first show. That was my first like real mosh pit. Remember, I'm coming from like bands like Twisted Sister and Van Halen and, the hard rock AC/DC. To see that Slayer crowd, that was just eye-opening. morning, and like a totally unique experience. Another great memory seeing them at Vakken. Just seeing your favorite band with 75,000 people singing along with you. That was really cool. And then just really quickly on the they did sort of the three legs of their closing tour. I got to see each leg. So the Toronto show was like a really good memory. I rarely do this, but I did their VIP tour, so I got to meet the guys earlier, got my picture with them, and I actually was able to watch the whole concert side stage, so it was like totally unique experience. So that was literally just staring at the guys like from the side. That was amazing. The flames in the background, like I was sweating the whole show because the intensity of the heat behind the drums was crazy. And then just lastly, seeing them in New York, Madison Square Garden, sold out Madison Square Garden. All I got to say there, when a band like Slayer sells out Madison Square Garden, that's amazing in itself. So I'll leave it there. I've said enough on live shows.
That's cool. Ken, how many times have you seen Slayer?
A handful of times, not as much as Billy. Although I saw the farewell tour, which was all right. And I actually seen the last tour that Jeff was on before he passed away. So like 2009, when it was Megadeth, Testament, and Slayer. That was a really good show. I really enjoyed it. It was although we didn't know at the time that Jeff was going to pass away not long after that, but it was a very memorable night for me. But I've only seen him a few times, but I've always enjoyed every show I've seen. I've always enjoyed. I've always had a good time. There's never been a bad Slayer show.
No, I think for me, I've seen them just 3 times. It's hard to remember when you go to a lot of concerts in the 80s, but I did see them with Pantera in Hamilton, Ontario. Yeah. With Pantera and Static X and Morbid Angel. So that was a memorable show to see them with Pantera because I really like Pantera. And of course, that was the original Pantera. Obviously, can't even remember the year. I don't even know what the tour was. I don't know if it was Pantera was headlining or Slayer. I can't even remember. Do you remember, Ken? Because you were at that show too.
I think it was Slayer. And
do you know what tour? Was it a special tour?
It would have been mid-90s, I think it was, if I remember correctly. So it might have been before, was it Seasons or before Seasons?
Yeah, I can't remember that.
I think it might have been Divine Intervention, Blake. I think if I'm pretty sure.
Because I might even went more because I wanted to see Pantera. I'm not sure because I think that was the only time I ever seen Pantera. So
Pantera, I did not close the show. I think Slayer did.
Yeah, okay. I thought that was it, yes.
Yeah.
And I thought I seen them open up for Heaven and Hell. Now I could be wrong, but in London, Ontario, Heaven and Hell played, Dio and Wyoming. Yeah. And I was sure Slayer opened up for them for some reason. I don't know why, but I was sure that it did. And then I did see the farewell tour in London, Ontario.
Right.
So a little smaller than your big things. And as far as I can recall, that's the only 3 times I've seen them. I could be forgetting one, but I'm sure that's it. So that's Slayer, but now we're going to we're going to finish off the podcast with our top 10 metal albums of 1986 so we can see where Slayer fits in. And since both you guys gave it a 10 out of 10, I'm pretty sure it's going to be pretty high on your list. So let's start with Kenneth, I guess. You do your top 10 first.
Okay, sure. So my number 10 is actually Killer Doors, Stand Tall. Love that album.
Great choice.
Yeah, I love that album. Yeah, that album was awesome. Number 9, and I know, Blake, you're not a fan, but Ozzy, Ultimate Sin, because I love J.T. Lee, and that cover was amazing. I love that album a lot. My number 8 is Alice Cooper, Constrictor, and knowing that I'm a huge horror fan, for me, it's like one of his better albums where horror and metal get mixed. It's a great album. Totally love that album. Number 7 is, of course, Flotsam and Jetsam, Doomsday for the Deceiver, and that's got to go on the list. That's a classic thrash album for me. Number 6, I'm going to go with Pleasure to Kill from Creator. Again, one of my favorite German thrash bands. Number 5, Destruction, Eternal Devastation. Again, I love that album to death as well. Number 4, Maiden Somewhere in Time. which I wanted to put that higher, but I love that album, but I couldn't. I just couldn't put it as number one. Of course, I'm putting Rain and Blood as number 3.
Oh.
Now, I do like it, but for some reason at the time, it was overshadowed for me for the next 2 bands. And number 2, Megadeth, Peace Cells, which again, I totally love that album. And then you know where I'm going with number 1, and that's Master of Puppets. As much as I love Slayer, those 2 albums I was listening to constantly at the time when they came out. I couldn't stop listening to both those 2 albums. So then when I started listening to Slayer, it's like, I love Slayer too, but I just, Megadeth and Metallica, I just couldn't stop listening to.
Well, the Slayer album came out in October. I don't have wrote down when Master and Peace Cells came out. So you're probably, you're listening to them more. And, there's only a couple months left in that year.
After April, I believe it came out, if I'm not mistaken. They both came out just previously before Rain did.
That's a good list. We have a few matches, but I'll let Billy go with your top 10. Start at number 10.
Yeah, so this was certainly a tough task. I narrowed it down to 15, and then I was sort of cursing you, Blake. It's like, damn you, a list of 10, why not 15? And again, the order could switch like plus or minus like 1 or 2 spots on any given day. But so number 10, this was we heard this one already. Destruction, Internal Devastation, just classic album. Finally got to see those guys live not too long ago, and a song from here, Curse the Gods, one of my favorites. Got to hear that live, so that was cool. Another repeat, number 9, Flotsam and Jetsam, Doomsday for the Deceiver, one of the best sort of thrash debut, sort of early albums. On that front, I'm going to go Canadian on the next one. Sword with Metalize. So just a really cool traditional metal band. I know Metallica was kind of fond of them and kind of got them some opening spots on some of the Metallica gigs. So that was cool. We got another repeat here, Megadeth, Peace Cells. Obviously a big fan of the album. I prefer Rust in Peace a little more, but that's obviously not 1986. I'm gonna totally shift gears on you guys. Cinderella, night song. So cool. I'm not the biggest sort of hair metal genre, but this was my favorite band from there. I just thought the songs were incredibly catchy and like Tom's bluesy vocal approach. Number 5, another repeat again, Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time, my favorite Maiden album. And, super excited that for the first time ever on this tour that Maiden's doing, they're playing Alexander the Great. And so we're going to get to hear that masterpiece for the first time, which is pretty incredible. Number 4, we're talking heavy, doomy, Candlemas, Epicus, Doomicus, Metallicus, just a great contrasting album to what I was listening to at the time. Slow it down, heavy, thick riffs, just, brutally intense. Number 3, continuing with the German thrash scene, Creator, Pleasure to Kill. Just love that album. I mean, a big step up from, Endless Pain. I mean, to me, Millie's like a thrash metal god. And so that was great stuff. Number 2, this was hard. But Metallica, Master of Puppets. Actually, that's my second favorite Metallica album. And so this, and then Slayer, Rain and Blood, number 1. I struggle. I switched them around throughout the night yesterday. But that's where I'm going to leave it for today. So, but yeah, just a great year for music, right? I mean, maybe, and we're all kind of old guys, and so probably we all have this, 86, 87, 88, 89, just such a golden period. But yeah, so many great albums that year.
Okay, yes, that's good. I think I matched maybe 5 of yours and 4 of Ken's, I think, something like that. And you could have mentioned some honorable mentions if you wanted to. I'll mention a few honorable mentions, and I'll do that. No, I was considering Exciters, Unveiling the Wicked, Canadian thrash band. I was considering Pile Driver, another Canadian band, Stay Ugly, their second album. And another Canadian band, Sacrifice, who was on, oh no, nobody had that on the list, right? No.
No.
Sacrifice's debut album, Torment and Fire, I also considered that. And I don't, maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I also considered Poison's Look What the Cat Dragged In. Because as like you said, Billy, you have a hair metal album on there, and I actually have a couple on mine. So, but I don't listen to hair metal anymore. But at that time, I was listening to everything at the time that was going on. But I know there's a few bands that you both had on your list that I don't have on my list. So we'll start with my number 10 is Creator, Pleasure to Kill, which is really, I didn't really listen to Creator that much, but I happened to get that album, probably read something where they were a great German thrash band, so I bought it and I like that one. Number 9, I have Rain and Blood, the one we just did. Number 8, I have Fastway with their Trick or Treat soundtrack for that movie, Trick or Treat, as I really liked Fastway, especially the first 2 albums. This was actually their 4th album. I didn't really like their 3rd album too much, I don't think. But anyway, I love the movie, so I think it kind of goes with I love the movie, so that's on my list. Number 7, I got Joe Satriani with his instrumental debut album, Not of This Earth, as I was really into Joe Satriani and Steve Vai back then when I thought I could maybe learn to play something like them, which I realized I couldn't. I really like that album. Number 6, I guess this would probably kind of be considered a heavy metal, is David Lee Roth. And I have Eat 'Em and Smile as my number 6 album because, again, Steve Vai. I just mentioned Steve Vai. I love Steve Vai, and he's on there. And sure, there's some lame songs on it, but there's some great songs with his guitar playing on it that. And I did like Van Halen when David was in the band, of course. And number 5, I have Cinderella Night Songs. As yes, I did. That's one of the few hair metal bands and albums that I will still put on today, as I like the first 2 Cinderella albums a lot, Long Cold Winter and this one, as it did have the bluesy thing, like you said. And now this one that didn't appear in anybody's list, number 4, is King Diamond and his debut album, Fatal Portrait.
Yeah.
I was big into Merciful Fate. So, of course, as soon as he had an album out, I was going to buy it anyway. And another band, I'm surprised that neither one of you had on your list, but my number 3 is Metal Church with The Dark, which is their 2nd album, because I love the first 2 Metal Church albums.
I have it on my honorable mentions.
Yeah,
okay.
Me too.
Yeah.
So I love Metal Church. So that's why, because my first 3 were easy when I made this list. And you can probably guess my first 2 now. But number 2 is Megadeth, Peace Sells, by Who's Buying. I love that album. That's my favorite Megadeth album.
Yeah.
And of course, number 1 is Metallica with Master of Puppets, because Metallica was my band back then. I got into metal through Iron Maiden, but then when Kill 'Em All came out, like Metallica was my band. So it would be hard for me not to have Metallica, especially Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets. Those are 2 of my favorite albums ever. So it would be hard for anything to dethrone that from my top 10 list of the year. So that's it. Anybody else want to mention any of their honorable mentions? Maybe just if nobody else mentioned them.
Yeah, you go ahead.
You go ahead first, Ken.
Oh, sure. Honorable mentions. I had a couple. Yeah, for sure. Judas Priest Turbo. I did like that album quite a bit. I know it's more commercial, but it's pretty cool. Bad Brains, I Against I, which I really, really liked at that time when it came out. And Awaken the Guardian, which I also really, really loved as well. So yeah, there's a few that I had.
And Billy?
Yeah, so I had Awaken the Guardians as well. Metal Church, The Dark, you mentioned that one, Blake. Another, like I struggled with putting this one, getting it in there, but it just fell out. Dark Angel, Darkness Descends, another sort of classic thrash album. And maybe slightly lesser known, but a band, Onslaught, The Force, was another sort of great album from 1986. And then lastly, Possessed, another Possessed, Beyond the Gates was another one. So those were kind of my 15 that I was like playing with.
And you both mentioned Iron Maiden's album, and it's I know I was big into Iron Maiden before Metallica, and I still listen to that. If we would have did this list, if we were in 1986 now and made this list, I probably would have put that on my list. But just as years go by, I don't really listen to the album anymore. Probably just because I listened to the first 5 and then I kind of stopped listening to Maiden albums too often. So that's probably why it's not on my list. But like I said, if it was 1986, it probably would have been on my list.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about what we think now, that's why it's not on my list. Anyway, so that was a good chat about Slayer. We definitely needed to get a Slayer on one of these podcast episodes. And even though, yes, the first album is my favorite Slayer album, but I know Rain and Blood is so highly, not just by YouTube, but by so many people, rated as top metal album ever, top thrash metal album ever, and all those lists. And I knew it was one we had to do, even though it wasn't my favorite, because I'm all for what the people want. So thanks, you guys, for joining me. Thanks, Ken, and thanks, Billy.
Yep. No
Yeah,
problem.
no, thanks. Lots of fun.
Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
and make sure, again, everybody checks us out on our website, www.themetalpit.org, and check out all our album reviews, interviews. We got a YouTube channel. You can listen to our podcast on the YouTube channel, as I've started to add them there. And we will talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening. Bye.